So your boy just got done watching the latest episode of Death Battle between Bleach's Ichigo Kurosaki versus Yu Yu Hakusho's Yusuke Urameshi. I like the idea of the death battle because, both characters kind of come from a similar power set, similar world structure of both being from the spirit world and using spiritual pressure to, fight their opponents and attack their enemies. Now, initially when they announced the death battle, your boy already pretty much kind of felt that the outcome will be pretty much very cut and dry, but it is two cool characters that you would like to see interact with one another. I feel like both characters in the show, the voice acting was decent. There wasn't a whole lot of lines, but I feel like whoever did Yusuke did a very good job. And whoever did Ichigo, they pretty much sounded like him. He just didn't really have as much dialogue as Yusuke did and didn't really get to show as much of his character. Now, the four different categories they went about with this battle was abilities, speed, power, and tactics. They gave ability, speed, and power all to Ichigo, which I, for the most part, agree. Neither one are really known for having a huge array of arsenal of moves in their bag, in their own verse, despite being the main characters. I would say they're pretty standard as far as abilities go. I mean, I guess Ichigo kind of is a more hacksy character, or at least hacks resistant character, with Bleach just displaying more of those in the verse. While in Yu Yu Hakusho, it's kind of similar to Dragon Ball Z, where it's more power based and just pretty much strength based fighting. I would say with a lot of energy destruction built in there, which Bleach also has as well. So I can agree with Ichigo winning that category. When it comes to speed, I also agree. I don't think Yu Yu Hakusho characters are necessarily slow, as a lot of people may try to lowball them to be. Like, I think they're all well beyond faster than light. I just think it's something that's never been directly displayed or stated. It might be hard to kind of prove if you're in like a debate or something, which I don't really care to get into, but I feel that you can kind of imply that those characters in Yu Yu Hakusho, just by the destruction of their battles, that they would be able to move that fast, and with them just being from freaking demon realms and having to fight demons on the daily. I would say they are, but Bleach is a lot more concrete with their speed, scaling, and their attacks, just being flat out said to be light speed attacks that they consistently was dodging at the beginning of the series, and they've only grown tens of hundreds of times stronger by the end at the end of the Thousand Year Blood War arc. Tactics they gave as a tie, which I mean, neither one really do too much big brained stuff, I would say. I mean, it's hard for me to think off the top of my head because both, I've seen both anime. They both run for over hundreds of episodes, so it's kind of hard. Bleach being a much longer anime, but neither character is really known as being like the super duper tactical characters of their verse. Like that's really reserved in Yu Yu Hakusho for characters like Karama, right? And then that's reserved for characters kind of like Aizen and Byakuya and Bleach, amongst others, because they have, more of a bigger, developed, fleshed out cast than Yu Yu Hakusho. So them giving it a tie, I pretty much agree. You could argue that Yusuke is more willing to fight dirtier, but I mean, Ichigo will fight pretty dirty if his hand is dealt. So I agree with that being a tie. Last but not least, the biggest one I think everyone is always looking for is the power, which when you discuss these two animes, it can get very pretentious. For example, like they don't really have a whole lot of concretely displayed feats of destruction, particularly, but you can kind of imply based off of just the range of their attacks, the durability of the worlds that they're in, and just the statements. Like the statements in Bleach, I think are pretty clear that a lot of people try to lowball or sometimes even highball at some points, but you can pretty much put Ichigo, I would say, in the comfortably both, I would say, are above planetary level, right? I think that's a base level thing. Like comfortably, Ichigo has been shown stopping a freaking the Sogyoku, which is said to be able to annihilate the entire Soul Society. Yamamoto just going into Bankai was threatening the entire Soul Society. Ichigo's fought Aizen, who's freaking surpass all of the Espada with, typical Grand Ray Serra attacks not even being able to be launched in certain parts of Las Noches, or the entire Las Noches would be destroyed. And those are literal worlds. Some people will scale them to say, oh, each of those worlds is a universal size realm because they have stars in the world. Me, I'm not really sure if that is the case, because we're not sure if they're saying it would destroy the planet or if it will destroy the planet and everything surrounding it. I think that's the only thing where I'm like, okay. But then you have in the 1,000-Year Blood War where it's clear as day with crap, I'm trying to think of her name. The Zero Division, the lady character's name, it just lost me, but I don't know, you got Ichibe, you got freaking um dang, bro, for some reason I just can't remember any of the other Zero Division names. But you know, Senjumaru, there we go, Senjumaru. Her Bankai was literally shaking. First of all, let's just put in perspective. The Zero Divisions, they sit at the top, basically a heavenly realm in the Soul Society itself, like above the Soul Society. And her Bankai's activation alone was able to not only shake the Soul Society itself, but shake Hueco Mundo and shake Earth, which is in a completely different dimension. So that alone, you can make an argument and scale it as a universal feat in its own right, right? And then Ichigo is clearly stronger than Senjumaru, like easily. You could argue she's not even a top 5 strongest character in the entire verse. So, and Ichigo is clearly number 2, if not 1, with Yuabak, and maybe you could argue Aizen is stronger, but Ichigo is clearly in the upper echelon, way above that. Yu Yu Hakusho, again, I mean, they pretty much just flat out tell you that around the Sensui arc, and maybe even a little bit before, would have to reread or rewatch to see when they say. But Genkai straight up states, and Genkai is Yusuke's master, one of the greatest, strongest, most powerful spirit detectives in her prime, S class, all that. But she clearly states, like, Yusuke, you can literally rule the entire planet / destroy the entire planet, and there is nothing that I would be able to do to stop you. And then Sensui is also stated that, if, he was to unleash his full power on planet Earth, that the entire world would pretty much cease to exist. I forget the exact wording they used, but it's pretty much implied he would destroy the entire planet. And then when Yusuke and Sensui fight, you literally have them going toe-to-toe, blow for blow, fighting in the demon realm, and the entire demon realm is shaking and being threatened. And then Yusuke goes from being S class to be like basically super S class, because he's goes through a training arc where he fights multiple S class spirit detectives and easily just washes them all. And then you get to the Three Kings arc where they give statements on Ryzen, which implies he could easily rule the entire demon realm with an iron fist had he kept up with his strength. And it's implied that Yusuke pretty much gets closely to around that level. So depending on how you view a demon realm, the most we can probably say, to be fair, that it's relative to planet Earth in the Yu Yu Hakusho world, or parallel to planet Earth, and that it's, the size of Earth. But you could just make an argument based off, you know, different iterations of demon realms, that you can argue it's a universal size realm if you really just want to get crazy and say the fact that all of the bad spirits have to go there, and you would need a universal size realm of spirits to hold it, unless you just go with the interpretation that all spirits come from just planet Earth. Then you could say, well, you would only need an Earth size realm to hold it. But if that's over the entire existence of planet Earth, then you would need a bigger sized space to hold that many souls. But overall, I would say Ichigo just has the clearer feats, and it's pretty much just too much. You would have to headcanony argue for Yu Yu Hakusho to even compete with the Bleach verse. So I think Death Battle was right. I don't know if all their calculations were spot on. I'm not, getting into all the mathematical stuff, but yeah, man, I think they were right. I think Ichigo clearly wins and is clearly stronger, but I think that, had Yu Yu Hakusho continued and got the same length as a Bleach, that it would have been a much more interesting fight. I feel like Yu Yu Hakusho never really reached its potential as far as power, structure, and all that. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think Death Battle got it right? Did you think they were pretty much spot on, or do you think that Yusuke should have beat Ichigo?